On the 19th of February, 2014, 3 men left an office in Mountain View, California, and drove a few blocks across the railroad tracks. They stopped at a white building that nobody had worked inside for years. One of them was called Jan Koum. He put a contract flat against the front door and signed it standing up. That building used to be the North County Social Services Office. 2 decades earlier, Koum stood in a queue inside it. He was 16, newly arrived from Ukraine, collecting food stamps. Food stamps are government vouchers you hand over at a shop instead of money, and they were feeding him and his mother. The paper he signed against that same door sold his company to Facebook for $19 billion. 4 years after he signed it, he quit Facebook. On his way out, he walked away from more than $400 million of Facebook shares that he had not been handed yet. He has never explained why in public. His co-founder has. The numbers everybody remembers about WhatsApp are the enormous ones. $19 billion. 450 million people opening the app every month. 32 engineers running all of it. The number nobody remembers is 10 million. That is everything customers paid the company in its last full year before Facebook bought it. The exact figure for that year was $10.2 million. On paper, they lost $138 million. But almost all of that loss was shares handed to their own staff, not real money leaving the bank. The actual cash they spent running the company that year was under $10 million. So what did Facebook pay $19 billion for? A promise. Written by hand on a scrap of paper and taped to a desk. Jan Koum was born in 1976 in a village outside Kyiv in Soviet Ukraine. His father ran the crews that built hospitals and schools. Their house had no hot water. His parents never said anything important on the telephone because they assumed the state was listening to it. He did not own a computer until he was 19. What he had was an abacus. In 1992, at 16, Koum flew to California with his mother. His father stayed behind and never came to America. Before they left, his mother filled their suitcases with pens and 20 Soviet school notebooks so that nobody would have to buy school supplies in America. A government housing program put them in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Mountain View. His mother took work babysitting other people's children. Koum swept the floor of a grocery store after school. Once a month, the two of them queued at the social services office across the railroad tracks for the food stamps. Then his mother was diagnosed with cancer, and the two of them lived on her disability payments. His father died in 1997, still in Ukraine. His mother died in 2000. Koum was 24 years old. He had no brothers or sisters, and there was nobody left. By 18, he had taught himself computer networking. How he did it tells you most of what you need to know about him. He bought the manuals from a secondhand bookshop, read them from start to finish, then returned them and got his money back. He also joined a hacker group on an early chat network. One of the other members was Sean Fanning, who went on to build Napster. Koum enrolled at San Jose State University and took a part-time job at Ernst and Young, testing whether companies' computer systems could be broken into. They sent him to check the advertising systems at Yahoo. The Yahoo employee sitting on the other side of the desk was called Brian Acton. Acton was the 44th person Yahoo ever hired. Neither man liked small talk, and that is exactly why they liked each other. 6 months later, Yahoo hired Koum as an infrastructure engineer. He stayed about 9 years. Years afterwards, on his own public profile, he described the last 3 of those years in 3 words. Did some work. 2 weeks into the job, a server broke, and one of Yahoo's founders, David Philo, phoned him about it. Koum said he was in class. Philo asked what he was doing in class and told him to get into the office. Koum dropped out of San Jose State. He said later that he hated school anyway. Toward the end, both Koum and Acton were moved onto Yahoo's advertising platform, and the work wore them down. Koum said it plainly. "Dealing with ads is depressing," he said. "You don't make anyone's life better by making advertisements work better." Remember that sentence. WhatsApp was built on that one idea. In the autumn of 2007, Koum and Acton both quit, walking out on the same day. Koum had roughly $400,000 saved. He spent the next year traveling around South America and playing ultimate frisbee. In January of 2009, Koum bought an iPhone. Apple's App Store had only existed for 7 months. He drove over to the house of a different friend, not Acton, a man called Alex Fishman, who hosted pizza and movie nights for the local Russian community. Koum and Fishman stood at that kitchen counter for hours, talking about an idea. Fishman remembers Koum holding up the address book on his phone, saying it would be useful if every name in it had a short status written beside it. On a call, battery low, at the gym. That was the whole product. There was no messaging in it at all. Fishman introduced him to a developer in Russia he had hired once through a freelancing website. Koum picked the name quickly because it sounded like the words, "What's up?" On the 24th of February, 2009, his 33rd birthday, he registered WhatsApp Incorporated in California. The app did not exist. He had registered a company for a product that nobody had written a single line of code for. The first version crashed. It froze. When Fishman installed it, almost nobody in his contact list had it, apart from a handful of Russian friends. Koum and Fishman sat in a rib restaurant in San Jose, going through the faults one at a time, and Koum wrote every one of them down in a Soviet notebook. The company existed, and Koum and Acton were both still applying for jobs. Twitter turned Acton down that May. "Got denied by Twitter HQ," he posted. Would have been a long commute. In August, Facebook turned him down as well. "Facebook turned me down," he wrote. Looking forward to life's next adventure. Koum had applied to Facebook too, and Facebook rejected him as well. Somewhere in the middle of that, after a game of ultimate frisbee, Koum told Acton he thought he should shut the company down and go and look for a proper job. He was 33, out of work, and spending his own savings on an app that did not work. Acton told him he would be an idiot to quit now, and to give it a few more months. Then Apple did something that had nothing to do with him. In June, Apple launched push notifications. That let an app send something to your phone even when you did not have the app open. Koum rewired WhatsApp so that changing your status sent an alert to everybody who had your number in their address book. Fishman's Russian friends started writing jokes into their statuses, then alerting each other to go and read them. "I woke up late. I'm on my way." Fishman described what happened next in the plainest possible way. "At some point, it sort of became instant messaging," he said. "We started using it as, 'Hey, how are you?' And then somebody would reply." Koum watched the statuses coming in from a Mac Mini in his townhouse in Santa Clara and realized he had built a messaging service without meaning to. He shipped WhatsApp version 2 with messaging in it, and the number of people using it went to 250,000. The company he had registered before there was anything to sell finally had something to sell. Koum went to Acton's house, and the two of them sat at the kitchen table, sending each other messages and watching the little delivery tick appear. In October, Acton persuaded 5 friends from Yahoo to invest $250,000 in the company. On the 1st of November, Acton joined as co-founder. They worked out of the Red Rock Cafe in Mountain View, then out of sublet cubicles behind a warehouse. There was no sign anywhere. The directions they gave early engineers coming to interview were to find the Evernote building, walk around the back, find an unmarked door, and knock on it. Neither founder paid himself a salary for years. Most of the money WhatsApp spent went on one thing you would never guess: Text messages. To prove you owned your phone number, WhatsApp had to send you a code by SMS, and WhatsApp had to pay for that message. About 2 cents to reach a phone in America. About 65 cents to reach a phone in the Middle East. Every single person who signed up cost them money before they had earned a penny. Every other app at the time was free and chasing as many users as it could get. WhatsApp did the opposite. They charged money for it. And when people started signing up faster than they could afford the text message bill, they switched the app from free to paid on purpose to slow their own growth down. In December of 2009, they added photos. The app still cost $1, and people still bought it. Acton said what both of them were thinking. You know, I think we can actually stay paid. By early 2010, the app was earning them about $5,000 a month. On the iPhone, that dollar was paid once, not every year, so the money arriving each month came from the people who downloaded it that month, not from everyone who already had it. For a technology company, that is a tiny amount of money. But it covered the text message bill, and it meant they never had to sell an advertisement to survive. That $1 decided everything that came after it. When an app is free, somebody else is paying for it, and that somebody is an advertiser. Advertisers pay to know exactly who you are, so a free app has to collect your details and sell access to you. WhatsApp charged you about $1 instead. That meant there was no advertiser and nothing worth collecting. The two men who had spent their 30s making Yahoo's advertising work better had built their own way out of it. By early 2011, WhatsApp was in the top 20 apps in America. Over lunch, the staff asked their founder why he was not talking to the press about any of it. Marketing and press kicks up dust, Koum told them. It gets in your eye, and then you're not focusing on the product. Sequoia Capital is one of the biggest investment firms in Silicon Valley. One of its partners, Jim Goetz, spent 8 months asking WhatsApp to let him invest in the company, and for 8 months they said no. They saw outside investment as a rescue, and they did not need rescuing. In January of 2011, they finally agreed and sold Sequoia a small slice of the company for $8 million. The thing that amazed Goetz was that WhatsApp was already making enough profit to pay company tax. He said he had never seen a startup do that before. The app was spreading through every country where sending a text message cost real money. Koum's description of SMS was that it was dead technology. A fax machine left over from the 70s, he said, still making easy money for the phone companies. He was saying it to an old friend called Chris Pfeiffer, who he wanted to build the BlackBerry version, and who was not convinced. People already have SMS, right? Pfeiffer looked at how fast the app was growing and took the job. WhatsApp ran on iPhone, on Android, on BlackBerry, on Windows Phone, on Nokia Symbian, and on Nokia S40. That last one is the one that matters. S40 phones were cheap handsets with number keypads. When WhatsApp started, about 70% of the phones being sold ran Nokia or BlackBerry software, and Apple and Google together had less than a quarter. WhatsApp paid engineers to build for them and kept supporting them until the end of 2018, almost 5 years after the company had been sold. That is why it won everywhere except America. A messaging app is only worth having if it reaches the people you actually know, whatever phone they own. By February of 2013, they had about 200 million people using the app and roughly 50 staff. Sequoia invested another $50 million, which meant the whole company was now worth $1.5 billion. Acton gave the reason plainly. For insurance, he said. You never want to be in a position where you can't pay your staff. Acton also sent Goetz a screenshot of the company's bank account. $8.257 million sitting in it, which was more than all the investment money they had ever received. On the office wall was a whiteboard counting the days since the app had last stopped working, like a safety board on a factory floor. Nobody was allowed to bother the server engineers in the week before Christmas. Mark Zuckerberg emailed Koum in the spring of 2012. The subject line was, "Get together." Koum stalled, blaming travel and server problems, then forwarded the email on to Acton with one word written above it. Persistent, the two of them had lunch at a German bakery 20 miles away from Facebook's campus, and then kept having dinner once a month for 2 years. Nobody wrote an offer down. In February of 2014, Koum and Acton booked an hour with Larry Page and Sundar Pichai at Google. Somebody at WhatsApp mentioned that meeting to a Facebook dealmaker on the Friday before it happened. Facebook moved fast. By Monday night, Koum was sitting in Zuckerberg's house, being offered a deal that would keep WhatsApp running independently, with a seat on Facebook's board attached to it. On the Thursday, Acton met Zuckerberg for the first time over dinner at his house and left at 9 to get home to his family. Forbes later reported that each side had a different number in their head. Zuckerberg was ready to go above 15 billion. Koum was thinking closer to 20. Neither number was said out loud in that room. On the Saturday night, standing in Zuckerberg's kitchen, the number reached $19 billion. Koum phoned Acton at 9 in the evening. Acton's answer was that he liked Mark, that they could work together, and that they should do the deal. Zuckerberg opened a bottle of Johnnie Walker Blue Label, which happened to be Koum's whiskey. On paper, it was $4 billion in cash and $12 billion in Facebook shares. On top of that, $3 billion more in shares for the founders and the staff, handed over slowly across 4 years, and only if they stayed. Facebook also promised that if the regulators blocked the deal, it would still pay $1 billion in cash and $1 billion in shares. $2 billion for a sale that never happens. On the Wednesday, they drove back across the tracks and signed it against the door. Koum called an all-hands meeting for 2 o'clock and told 55 people they were merging with Facebook. Zuckerberg walked in half an hour later. After the call with the investors was over, all Koum said was, "We still have a company to run." That Saturday, 3 days after the world found out, so many people tried to sign up at once that WhatsApp stopped working for about 4 hours. The company with the outage counter on the wall, whose entire product was a message that always arrives, was offline on the biggest weekend of its life. Acton said the timing was a coincidence. What Facebook bought was 450 million people opening the app every month, 72% of them opening it every single day, and 50 billion messages moving between them. The company running all of that had about 55 people in it, and 32 of those were engineers. That is 1 engineer for every 14 million users. The servers ran on Erlang, a programming language originally built to run telephone exchanges, tuned by hand until a single machine could hold 2 million live connections at once. Then they deliberately ran each machine at half of that, leaving room for earthquakes, football matches, and New Year's Eve. Acton's rule was that a single message is like your firstborn child. You never drop one. Your identity on WhatsApp was your phone number. No username, no password, no email address, no profile to fill in. The app read the address book that was already in your handset, so the network existed before you did. Goetz put it well. It doesn't ask you to build a new map of your relationships, he said. It uses the one already there. In the year Facebook bought them, WhatsApp's entire marketing budget was $30,000. Not $30 million. $30,000 against $77 million spent on engineering. There was no growth team and no press officer to spend it. Sequoia said the amount of money WhatsApp had spent on getting new users was 0. The whole thing is one decision, repeated for 5 years. Charge the user $1 so that nobody else has to be sold anything. Everything else follows from that. No advertising meant no data collection. no data collection meant no profiles to build. No profiles meant a phone number was enough. And a phone number being enough is how 55 people could serve 450 million. The scrap of paper taped to Koum's desk was in Acton's handwriting. It said, "No ads, no games, no gimmicks." Sequoia published a photograph of it on the day of the sale. The company they had just sold to made 98% of its money from advertising. What happened next is known mostly through Acton because Koum has never told it himself. Facebook wanted targeted advertising inside WhatsApp's status screen and analytics tools to sell to businesses. Acton argued for a different idea, charging heavy users a fraction of a penny per message. He says Sheryl Sandberg, Facebook's second-in-command, told him it wouldn't scale, meaning it would not work at a large size. During the takeover, European regulators asked Facebook a direct question. Could a WhatsApp account and a Facebook account be matched to each other? Facebook said it could not reliably do that. Within 2 years, the accounts were being linked. In 2017, the European Commission fined Facebook €110 million for giving them misleading information. Acton says he was coached on what to say for that call. When Sandberg said it wouldn't scale, Acton understood her to mean it would not make enough money. He resigned in September of 2017, about a year before the last of his Facebook shares were due to be handed over. On his way out of the building, he took a screenshot of the share price. Leaving a year early cost Brian Acton $850 million. In March of 2018, in the middle of the Cambridge Analytica scandal, Acton posted 4 words. "It is time. #delete Facebook." 6 weeks later, Koum announced that he was going to. The Washington Post reported that Koum had clashed with Facebook over how it wanted to use people's personal data and over weakening the encryption that keeps messages private. Koum's farewell said none of that. "It is time for me to move on," he wrote. He was taking time off to collect air-cooled Porsches and play ultimate frisbee. He left more than 2 million Facebook shares behind, worth about $400 million, because he had not stayed long enough to be handed them. Acton explained himself months later to Forbes. "I sold my users' privacy to a larger benefit," he said. "I made a choice and a compromise, and I live with that every day." Koum has never said anything like it. What we know for certain is this. He signed a $19 billion contract against the door of the building where he once queued for food stamps. And 4 years later, he walked away from $400 million he had not been paid yet and went to play frisbee. If you want to see a founder get even closer to the edge before it works, the next file is Jensen Huang. 1997. The week NVIDIA's first working chip reached the shops, it had about 1 month of payroll left in the bank. Today, that company is worth around $5 trillion. Thanks for watching.